Hello, Hagerman Baptist Church family. We are going to be sharing with you our wilderness trip, kind of recap here in a little bit different way. Normally we do this during our evening services, and we have a chance for all the teens and I to get up in front of you and share a little bit of what we did. But with not having the evening services right now, we thought one of the best ways we could do it is just have everyone submit some videos in, sharing their testimony of what they learned, how God worked in their lives over this time. So hopefully you enjoy this. Again, I know it's unique, but hopefully it'll be an encouragement to you as you hear about what we did. So if you didn't know, or just to kind of give you a little more in-depth of what we did, we took the teens to do a backpacking trip in Colorado. And so it's called the Lost Creek Loop, is what we did. And each year, I try to think through what the summer trip's going to be, and there's always a purpose behind it. There's a reason why I do these trips. And so the reason for this wilderness trip or backpacking trip is a big part of it is to get away from the distractions. Even if one of the teens had brought their phone during this time, they wouldn't have been able to use it anyways because there was no connectivity out there. But being able to get out and removed from everything that's going on, right now in their lives, everything like that, was a super big help. It gives them more ability to be able to focus on God and what God has to tell them. Without all the noises, all the commotion, everything that's going on, those distractions, they're able to really focus on what God has for them to learn that week. Another big thing with any wilderness trip is the challenge aspect, the pushing, the tension that's there, to be able to help us realize that there's more that we're able to do. There's the physical aspect as far as, you're pushing your bodies beyond what you think, but as you do that, and as we're studying through God's Word, we're able to realize that we're able to do a lot more than we thought so, but not just because of our incredible abilities, but because of how God allows us to do that, and God works through us. And then we rely on each other more, and there was definitely a lot of that during this trip. So I want to briefly share with you what the trip looked like, and then as we go on throughout these other videos, you'll be able to see and hear from the teens specifically of what God did in their lives during the trip. But we left on Saturday, July 4th, very early in the morning. We met up then with another group from Bethel Baptist Church in Oskaloosa, and we met up with them around Waukee and got to briefly get to see them and know them. I have worked with Ronnie Hemsworth, the youth pastor there, for off and on for a while back before, for a few years, and have known him over the years. So greatly appreciate his ministry and knew that we would work well together. So we got going, then we broke down. The van started leaking coolant, and we were stuck on the side of the road, and were able to pull off, fortunately, into a gas station. And I had no idea what to do, but Ronnie did. He got us fixed up, got us back on the road, broke down again. He fixed us up again, and then we were good for the rest of the trip. So we're able to get started with the whole tension aspect pretty early on in the trip, which made things very interesting there. But because of some of those delays, we arrived a little bit later at the campground, but we made it there. That night, got all set up, got some sleep the best we could as we got ready for the next morning. So then on Sunday the 5th, we got up early, we got going, we began our hike, and it went a lot slower than I anticipated, a lot slower than we were hoping to get, and we didn't get as far as we wanted to because a lot of us were still getting acclimated, getting used to the altitude up there, and it was very hard. I know the teens will attest to that. Myself will definitely attest to that. It was a very hard day. But we made it to the campsite, got ready for the next day. The second day on that Monday went much better. We were a little bit more used to the altitude. There was definitely still struggle throughout the week, but that second day was better. And then that night we made it to a comfortable campsite, which was maybe a little bit more help there as well. So then the next day we had designated as a solo day. Because we didn't get as much hiking in on that first day that we planned, we spent the first half of the day as our solo aspect, and everyone's spread out, and we're able to spend time just one-on-one with God in God's Word and prayer, and just an excellent opportunity for us to be able to do that. Then we gathered back at the campground, at the campsite, and we ended up hiking the rest of the day to get a little bit further along to help out with the rest of the trip, which was crucial, on that day. And so, but just it was really, really good time that we had in that solo time, and I know it was very beneficial for the teens as well. So then Wednesday was the day of all days. It was the hike uphill, a lot of extreme uphill, where we got to our highest point, during the trip. And it was a difficult day, but it went even better than that first day. It was a lot harder than the first day, but the teens were a little bit more ready for it. But it was a long and it was a hard day, and they did great. But we went up to a Mount McCurdy is what it was called, and found a campsite there. It was kind of the last pick that you would choose for a campsite, because all the good ones were already taken since we got there later in the day. So not the best area, but we were just happy to be able to park it for a while, and that was necessary night's sleep there. So then the next day we were ready to get out of that campsite, and it was our last day of hiking. Most of it was downhill. There was definitely some hard uphill stuff as well, but most of it was downhill. Everyone probably had a little bit better attitude that day because we knew the end was in sight, but it was very hot. And towards the end of the day especially, and as we got back to the campground where we started, our campsites had no shade. We were hot, we were exhausted from the trip, and so we decided to dip into the ice-cold river that was running right there next to the campground, and it was a fun time. It was a helpful time. Then that night was a lot more just relaxing and decompressing from the trip, and just a fun time altogether. Then the next day we got up early, we got hitting the road, and we started our trip back home. We did most of the trip up to Lincoln, Nebraska with the other group, and then they continued on home that night. Me, knowing how tired I get when I'm driving, and what it would be like especially late at night, I knew it would be best for us to stop. We stayed at a hotel that night. We were able to get showered, get clean, get some food in us, and a really good night's rest. And then on that Saturday, the 11th, we made the rest of the trip home. So that's, in a nutshell, a very quick, compressed nutshell of what our trip looked like. But something that the teens are going to be doing now in the rest of this video is they're going to be sharing with you personally what God taught them. And so I wanted to share that as well. I mean, for me, a big part of what God was teaching me throughout that week was working on my humility. I was one of the leaders on the trip, but I was outside of my element. I like outdoor stuff, but it became very obvious very quick that I was not as well suited for this as I thought I was. And so the physical struggle that I was going through, and then mentally thinking how I'm supposed to be leading, our teens on this, and it was a hard time. And the other leader, he's very much geared towards this. He knew what to do, even just with fixing the van on the way up. I had no idea, but he did. And then we got there, and he knew all that we needed to do, where we needed to go, and I felt a little bit more like a participant than I did a leader. And so there was a lot of gut checks for me, and really working on my humility and getting to the point of realizing that obviously God is in control, and I don't need to be, and that was a huge help for me and an encouragement. But one of the fun or kind of funny moments that stuck out to me throughout the week, and there were a lot of them, but was just on our last night when we had got back to the campground. We were going to be starting the trek home the next day, and then we just were sitting around the campfire and just really hamming it up and having a good time. And all of a sudden, everyone just was bringing out their food that they had left over from the week. And Kendra found like 5 cans of Pringles in the church van that were left over. And we're just sharing all our food and eating like kings, as far as we know. I mean, Pop-Tarts and Pringles. But it was great and just a really fun time. That just stuck with me throughout the trip. But thank you so much. I know with this year, just everything being so different, we didn't get to announce the trip as much beforehand that we like to, but when we finally realized, oh no, the trip is coming up and we need help financially getting prepared for that, you as a church family jumped on that so quick. And so thank you so much for your willingness to invest in the trip, more importantly, invest in the opportunity of growth for our teens, for our group. And I know that there was a lot of growth, and you'll hear about that throughout the rest of this video. So thank you so much, and I hope that this will continue to be an encouragement to you as you hear from the teens.
Hi, my name is Sarah. I'm going to share a little bit about the wilderness trip with you guys. So the very first day, really early on in the day, it was probably within half an hour to an hour of when we started hiking, I got altitude sickness pretty bad. I was just super dizzy all day and had a major headache, and I ended up actually throwing up twice in that morning. And that was really challenging for me just because I just wanted to feel fine and be able to carry my own pack and not have the others have to do it. So I was forced to take it really slow just even to be able to finish out the day. And that was really hard because I was behind the others so much and I wanted to keep up with them. But God was really teaching me that day was patience. He wanted me to learn that being the fastest or keeping up with the others isn't what's the most important thing in life. It's just being able to make the most out of your situation and do the best that you can to glorify God. And also just learning to be thankful even through the hard times. And so being as dizzy as I was and my headache, it was so hard for me to be thankful. But even through that tough day, God gave me something to be thankful for. April stayed back with me pretty much the whole day. And no one asked her to stay behind. She just did it, and she did it without complaining about how slow it was going to be or how much her own head hurt. I found out a couple days later that she ended up with a headache. Not as bad, but still a headache that day too. So she didn't complain about it. She just had a super good attitude, and so I was so thankful that she was there. And one of the verses I kept going back to that day was 1 Thessalonians 5:18. It says, "In everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you." And that one is really hard when you're going through something tough, but that day really showed me, even through the times that I wanted to just quit and I wanted to go back and I wanted to stop because my head hurt so bad, but I had to stop, just remember that verse and remember to be thankful because that was the lesson God was teaching me that day. So one fun thing that happened was the very last day of the trip. We finished hiking and we had decided, we had got back to the campground, and there was like this little river/creek thing. We just called it the river. But so we all decided, we're like, that looks really awesome. We're gonna get in that later once we get everything at our campsites. And so a little bit later, it was like an hour later or so, we got everything to our campsites and we went and we got in that river, and it was so cold. It was freezing cold. And we were literally like screaming. It was so cold. We were just like, oh my goodness, this is so cold. But it felt so good after such a long, hard week. Just refreshing. We got to go down it a little ways. So that was really awesome. And we all, the youth pastor of the other group, Pastor Ronnie, was like, yeah, this is really good for our muscles, guys. It's like, just like icing them. So that was really fun. Thank you guys so much for letting us go on this trip and for praying for us while we were on it. I had an awesome week just of getting to know everybody better and learning about God more. So thank you guys so much.
Hi, my name is Kendra Peters. I went on the wilderness trip with Pastor Caleb, our group, and then the other youth group that we went with. I was just going to share my testimony really quick. So we went to Colorado, and that was very, very beautiful. But one thing that God really taught me during the trip was to focus on other people more than myself, because I have the tendency to do that. And then just with when we're hiking, it's easy to get focused on how much you're tired, and then really with other people, how tired they are compared to you. So just to go back and carry a pack, even though you're tired, just walk with them and talk with them and just make it easier on them, trying to get them focused on the conversation instead of hiking up the mountain or trail or whatever we were doing at that point. And then one fun thing was, I think it was Tuesday night, or was it Tuesday or Wednesday, I think. We went, and there was a group of 5 of us. We went just mini exploring, and we found this awesome cave, and that was just so cool to see how God just made it and formed it, and that was just really, really cool. So I think that was probably a fun part of my trip, was just being able to explore the cave and then bring the other group with us back the next day. So yep, that's my testimony.
Hi, I am April Hall, and I was a youth sponsor on the summer trip this year to Colorado. I'm just going to share a few things that I enjoyed and learned on the trip. We had a few days of hiking, so we had a lot that happened and a lot of beautiful things that we were able to see and experience, which was really cool. Colorado is definitely a beautiful place, and I would love to go back again. Probably one of my favorite things that we did on the trip was, I think it was either the 3rd day that we were hiking. We camped at a place that had cool water just running through, and there was a cave there that the water ran through, and we kind of got to explore it for a little bit one morning before we took off for our hiking for the day. And it was so beautiful, and it was something that I don't see in Iowa very often, so it was cool. And I really enjoyed that part, at least of the beauty that we saw. Because, I mean, we saw a lot of beautiful things. The mountains were beautiful. The trees were beautiful. The weather was beautiful. We didn't have too much of anything that was scary. We had a storm, I think, like a rainstorm one night, one day. And it was nothing. I mean, it was very quick, and it was done, and we didn't have a lot of rain. So that was something to be thankful for and a blessing. Probably one of the biggest struggles I had during the trip was I ended up getting some blisters on my heels that were not getting better and just got worse as the trip went on, and ultimately it was just shooting pain throughout the trip, but it was okay. We got through it, and it just reminds me to be more prepared for the next one and have some more band-aids and whatnot for that. Something that God taught me was just that we always have time to reach out to other people. When we're on trips like this, you rely on each other a lot, and you can do it on your own, but it's definitely easier if you lean on each other and work together to get to a goal, or get to the next campsite, or anything like that, or get water. Everything is a challenge, but working together makes it a lot easier. And I realize that even at home, I have plenty of opportunities to give to other people or to be a help, but a lot of times I make an excuse, or like, I don't have time. I mean, we always have time, or I'm always like, I'm too tired or something like that, and I was probably more tired on this trip than I would have ever be at home, so there's no excuse. So God definitely taught me that I need to be more available to those around me and willing to serve. He also just showed me just the beauty that is out there. Colorado is gorgeous, but there's beauty in our everyday lives as well that we just bypass because we don't take the time to notice it. And I definitely realized that I need to do that a lot better too here at home, and seeing the beauty in God's creation. He created people too, so seeing the beauty in people and investing in them as well. I had a great time on this trip, and I'm so thankful for all the prayers and the support that we had. We all made it out, so that is a huge blessing and something to be thankful for. And I hope we can do it again sometime.
Hi everyone, my name is Brody Hine, and I was one of the youth sponsors on the trip to Colorado. and it was just a great trip overall. I thought the kids did a really great job working with each other, just in our group, but also with the group from Oskaloosa. They did a great job meshing with them, because that's, it's always an unknown going into these kinds of trips where we have multiple youth groups together, but they did a really great job, got along great. And as far as the wilderness trip itself, it was just very demanding, I guess you could say, especially the first day. I had never been to Colorado personally. This was my first experience out there. And the altitude is definitely an experience just by itself. And also a lot of the first day was going uphill, so that was definitely a challenge for all of us. I know we had to stop and catch our breath quite a few times, and then just the things that happened at various times throughout the week, whether it was altitude sickness or bloody noses, things like that. All of these different trials that popped up throughout the week. I thought we all did pretty well as a group in sticking together, and just having a good attitude about it for the most part. And just saying, there's nothing that we can do about this. It's something that some of these things we can't control that, and so that's obviously a great reminder, just an application to our daily lives, as far as what we can't control, but just taking that in stride in our daily lives and knowing that God has control over all things and that all of those things work for good. And so I would say the biggest thing that God taught me on this trip is just the importance of helping others. And I mean that in the sense of, it was pretty, at least from my point of view, it was pretty easy overall, just throughout the week. And looking at someone who, you could tell they were just super tired, super wore out. And so it was easy to maybe help someone along the way, just out in the wilderness, because obviously we're out there to experience the creation that God had made, and so we're all just together. And I know Pastor Ronnie from Oskaloosa, one of the things he said was, we only do as well as the entire group does. It's not individual. It was as a group. We succeed as a group, and so therefore, if someone is struggling a little bit, you help them. It's that simple, and that's how we get through that trip. But it's a little different in our daily lives, when we have all of these different things going on in each of our lives. It can be difficult to really reach out to somebody when we already have our own set of things going on and our own set of problems and trials to deal with. And so sometimes, back here in Iowa, just in our daily lives, it can be difficult to really take that extra step in reaching out and helping somebody who is in need. And as I said, it's easy in the wilderness because it's what we're there for. We're there to be in the wilderness, and we know that we're going to have to help each other throughout the time that we were there. But that is also super important just in our daily lives. Especially when we think about just witnessing to people. That's helping them in their lives, because we may be the only person in somebody's life that they would be exposed to Christ, and we would be able to share about that with them. And so not only that, but then also other believers as well throughout throughout our daily lives. It can definitely be a blessing and encouragement to them if sometimes we stop, we hit the pause button, and just really think and pray about maybe specific individuals, and saying, okay, God, how can I help this person? How can I help make something more bearable for this person? How can I be an encouragement to them? And so I would say that's definitely a really big thing that God taught me throughout that week. Now, as far as like a fun or funny moment on the trip, I can't remember what day it was. It was either early on through the week or sometime in the middle of the week. But there was one of the kids from the other youth group. His name was Austin, and he had a sibling. He had an older sister named Autumn on the trip, and somebody was asking him, would you ever hurt your sister? Would you ever punch your sister? And Austin just very, very seriously says, I would never, ever punch my sister. Heed my words. And then the person asked him, so if she asked you to, would you punch her? Yes, he says, without hesitation. And Pastor Caleb and I were just sitting next to each other, and we just busted out laughing. That was just a really funny moment. And as I said, all the kids were great throughout the week. They had great attitudes, and so that was definitely encouragement to Pastor Caleb, Pastor Ronnie, and me and April as youth sponsors definitely made it a lot easier and a lot more fun for all of us. So. I think that just about does it for my testimony on the trip. Thank you so much for those of you who supported us in prayer. That was definitely a big encouragement, more than you know. So I think that's about it for me. So thank you so much.
Hello, my name is John Swales. I went on the wilderness trip with Hagerman Baptist Church. We learned a couple of things on the trip. It was pretty intense. We learned things both that you can push yourself more than you can think physically, and learned a couple of things spiritually. One of the main things I learned was to keep my focus on Christ. So, the solo day was my main day that I learned this. So for solo day, our passage was 2 Timothy 4:7, which is talking about Timothy. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. So we were trying to figure out what that means in our devotions, and the first passage that popped to my head was Hebrews 12, 1 through 2. I'll read the main passage of that. Let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. So that's the main part of that passage. So I learned from that to keep my focus on Christ, no matter what I'm doing, to focus on Christ. And something else I learned on this trip was to use your friends, to talk to them, and to have them pray for you through hard times, and then also for you to be able to know what their needs are and to pray for them. So that was also during solo day that I realized I hadn't been doing such a good job of that. And the main passage that I had thought of for that, I had actually thought of it previously, if I can flip to it, is Ecclesiastes chapter 4. Ecclesiastes chapter 4 verses 9 through 12. I'll read 9 and 10. So it's talking here the value of a friend. So, 2 are better than 1, because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, one will lift up his companion. But woe to him who is alone when he falls, for he has no one to help him up. So that kind of convicted me that I hadn't been doing such a good job of talking to my friends and telling them my needs. Something kind of funny on the trip was there was a really hard day where we had to climb a pretty big mountain. I think that day was the highest elevation that we had gotten to all week. So if you know me, I'm usually a one-track. My personality is I have a one-track mind. Usually I'm pretty much always thinking about food. But this week in particular, I hadn't really been thinking about food that much. It was mostly I hadn't even I wasn't even hungry at all, but my stomach rumbled once, but I didn't really feel hungry. But then the one day that we were hiking, getting up to the high elevation, we were all working together, and we got pretty near the top, and my food mind kicked in, I guess. And I'm like, oh, it would be really good once we get to the hotel. And Pastor Caleb's like, well, what? And I'm like, pizza sounds really good. And he laughs pretty hard, but it was like the principal laugh. I kind of thought I was in trouble. I'm like, what'd I do? And he's like, yeah, we're so having that the night we're in the hotel. So it was decided then and there that we were having pizza, and the night that we were driving back, that we're getting to Lincoln. So we had pizza for supper that night. And usually, when you get on a wilderness trip, that your stomach shrinks and you don't really realize it. So you think, oh, I can eat such and such of this and a really big quantity, but your stomach is really shrunk. And I know Pastor says that a lot, and usually it's true, but for me at this time, I guess it wasn't. I ate 6 pieces of pizza, so that was my funny moment and the story I wanted to share to you. So yeah, we kind of pushed ourselves to the test physically. So thank you for sending us, and thank you for praying for us. Hope you have a great day.